Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, New Release, The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It is the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofcruising.net. It helps support the channel through our partnership with Where's Walters Travel. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. And this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome back Venus Anderson, who attended Melanin at Sea's recent group cruise to Alaska on Celebrity Edge, and will share her reflections with the listeners. Venus and I are among the 105,000 members of Melanin at Sea, one of the most influential of the thousands of private cruising discussion groups on Facebook. It is comprised predominantly, but not exclusively, of cruisers or aspiring cruisers of color. Melanin at Sea was created by friends of the show and global cruise personalities, A Rich and Jazzy Life, aka Richard and Jasmine Ranmarine, who I featured in my newest book, The Joy of Cruising Again, and who have been guests on the podcast. Venus happens to be the moderator of Melanin at Sea. As I read the posts and enjoyed the images coming from Alaska, I recalled my trip there last year. Well, I fell in love with Alaska and wished I was on the group cruise, which, by the way, Melanin at Sea group cruises are known to be legend. Plus, it was on Celebrity's Edge class. Many of the listeners know my favorite ship is another Edge class sister, Celebrity Beyond. So as soon as Celebrity Edge disembarked, I reached out to Venus and asked her to come back on the Joy of Cruising podcast and share her reflections with the listeners. I was confident Venus would be a good representative on behalf of Melanin at Sea. Besides serving as moderator, Venus has been a fun guest on the Joy of Cruising podcast before. From time to time, I invite guests I encounter on social media who posts a great story and photos about some bucket list cruise that I think the listeners would enjoy hearing about. Last year, I invited Venus on to talk about her bucket list holiday cruise with her daughter to Australia, a destination on my bucket list, as well as the bucket lists of some of my most experienced guests. Check out episode 84, Venus's Sydney, Australia bucket list cruise on Carnival Splendor. Welcome back, Venus, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thanks again for having me once again. And hello, the Joy of Cruising podcast listeners. So nice to be with you.
So good to see you again, Venus. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm looking over my shoulder at the USA men's Olympic basketball.
I'm doing the same. Well, I'm straight ahead, so we're up by 12 at this point. I'm sure as we go further into the podcast, we would be done with the game.
Well, I tell you what, I will read from your eyes when it's important for me to turn around.
All right.
Because my TV's behind me.
All right.
Before we talk about another Slamming Melanin at Sea's group trip, tell our listeners about yourself, those few who might have missed your last appearance. Talk about, where you're from, where you live, background, anything you would like to share.
Sure. So again, my name is Venus. I am the moderator for the Melanin at Sea group Facebook page. The founders are Richard and Jasmine. That's my sister and brother-in-law. We conceived the Melanin at Sea idea back in 2020. It is now expanded to 105,000 members as of last week. This was our fifth group cruise, which they affectionately call it the Melanin at Sea Group Cruise 3.0. Of course, prior to that was 2.5. It's weird how it's numbered, but it works for us.
We'll talk about those prior cruises because each one stands on its own
Yeah, and
as
they,
legend. So
they do. And each one, I mean, Paul, we got to get you on one because
I was I sent a note. You can ask Jazz and Rich. I sent a note to them about I don't know a few weeks about maybe it's a couple of months ago or a month and a half ago,
Mhm.
and I don't know why I had in my mind this cruise was going to be in the summer of 25, and
Mm,
due to a recent modification to my cruising in 20 because I'm all booked up for 25, and due to a
right.
recent modification to my summer of 25, I called Rich and Jazzy. I said, send me the details about the Alaska cruise because now I'm interested. And what I didn't realize that it
Because
was
this year,
July of 24. So but
yep,
yeah, I'm gonna get on one of those.
there will be plenty more to come.
I have exotic destinations, great cruise ships, and even a Melanin at Sea group cruise on my bucket list. So you're in
Amazing.
good company. So
Excellent.
what's it like to be the moderator of what I believe to be the most influential group on Facebook?
Um, it's, in the beginning, it started off with just a few hundred people, mostly friends and family. And somehow a friend told a friend of a friend, and then it exploded. I mean, we were getting 1,200 requests a week at one point for people to join. So it really took off in a way that I don't think any of us really anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was, in the beginning, it was a cakewalk because it would just be me mostly posting cruise news and things like that. But then once it expanded, it was like, Venus, you don't have to post anything anymore. And you could just let the people speak. And people, now they're wearing merchandise. They're taking pictures with their families. They're talking about encounters. They're talking about upcoming cruises. They're moving away from the groups on Facebook that's the actual sailing and asking if people from Melanin at Sea are going to be on their cruise
Right.
on certain dates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always fun to see their interactions with people. Sometimes people post wild stuff. Of course, there's the pineapple people
Yeah. Yeah.
and and the people who just want to see fights all day and and we've been able to kind of weed that stuff out. I'm doing most of the moderating. Rich and Jazzy, they click on things from time to time, but the longtime users of Melanin at Sea and members, they know me as the moderator. So sometimes they'll inbox me
Oh
and they'll
wow.
say, Venus, there's a little scuffle going on in these comments. Can you delete that? Or can you check on that? Or can you do, and I usually don't get involved. Either I'm suspending people, deleting people, blocking people. Um, I think we've done a great job of getting the bots out. Before it used to be, people selling things and trying to solicit things and so it's a very active page. It pretty much runs itself. People, we're all adults, big grown adults. There aren't very many younger people in there who are causing a fracas. But I noticed there's the more mature people that have been a little to the side sometimes with some of their comments because you have the people who've been cruising for a very long time. We have people in the group who've been cruising since the 70s, and then we have people who just started cruising last year. So then sometimes you have those differences in opinion, and we try to definitely moderate as best we can in terms of attitudes and just not having any friction and keeping the conversation going with the comments.
Well, I applaud you as moderator of a 105,000 member group.
Thank you.
Over the years, I have been kicked off my fair share of Facebook groups, and it's never because I say anything untoward or ugly. It's usually a misunderstanding about my podcast. I'll post something related to my podcast, and I've been kicked off after one infraction. So
Right, right. And no, we love the podcast because you highlight, not just myself and Richard and Jasmine, but other people, who've been on exotic sailings and things that
Yeah,
are very
yeah.
unique. And I think it's important for people to hear a different, because we're not necessarily interviewing people about their experiences. They could do a post
Right,
and then we
right.
move on. That lasts for a good day or two, and then we move on to the next thing. But I feel like the podcast lives for a very long time, and people are getting facts and information about different itineraries and experiences that go beyond just, the Bahamas.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I would say it's not a big number, maybe 10% of my
Hmm.
podcast are people who I don't know,
Right.
and I've just met them. I put met in air
Right.
quotes. I just met them on a Facebook group, and they just have someone who I don't know has a dream cruise, and I'll DM them, or I'll just respond. What a bucket list cruise! If you're interested in being on the Journal Cruising podcast, DM me. That's how. I mean, I kind of knew you a little bit,
Hmm.
but the first time I had you on the show, you did a cruise to Australia,
Yes.
and I've had people who have done. I'm not lying. Who have done 500 cruises and never had been to Australia. So I just thought that was worthy to talk about.
Right.
I just got someone else on another Facebook group, and they did a cruise, actually the same cruise that I'm about to do, a river cruise to France, and they visited Paris.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you got something you want to say about a wonderful cruise, I'm interested. So anyway, let's let.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I mean, Paul is one of the best in the interview in the podcast space in terms of travel. So definitely, the input is great, and it offers the listeners something that I feel like they
Yep,
need.
yep,
They
yep.
need in terms of what to expect on something that's unique.
So Melanin has garnered quite a reputation for its group cruises. Talk about the previous ones, and then we'll get into Alaska.
Sure. So the very first one, we started off on Carnival. I feel like the majority of the group, their favorite, the Carnival Mardi Gras, and that was back in 22. Yeah, 2022. Um, then they decided to do another Carnival cruise, which was 1.5 in summer of 2023, and they decided to do a 1.5 because they said, you know what, this will be a shorter cruise, and so we'll just give it a point 0.5 because we know that 2.0, it was originally supposed to be on the Carnival Jubilee, which unfortunately wound up getting pushed back because it was still being built. So then they switched it because it was during Thanksgiving time, and that worked out for the majority of people. For me, it didn't work out because I was going to Australia shortly thereafter. So I said, you know what? I still work full time. I don't have the joys of retirement, and I don't work remotely. So I had to make that decision. That's the only one I didn't go on. So, and that was Thanksgiving 2023, which I heard it was a good time. But I also heard that that wasn't the best one. No one can really figure out what was the best one, but I feel like that one was probably not a favorite. I wouldn't say the least favorite, but the vibe was different because MSC is a different kind of culture. Yeah, and then plus I wasn't there. My mom told me people were asking her about me, and I said, "Well, you guys know I've posted I'm going to Australia." And it was fabulous. And then 2.5 was the one prior to the Alaska cruise, which was Virgin Voyages.
Now you missed 2.0.
No, 2.0 was MSC for Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought that was 1.5.
No, 1.5 was Carnival Venezia in,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
in summer of 23. That was the shortest one we've taken thus far, and that was only a 4 day. That one, because mainly, I'm from New York, you from New York originally. That brought out a lot of people. We had 300 Melanin at Sea Cruisers on that one. And of course, it worked out. It was a Monday through Friday. People were easily able to take off of work. Some people were able to drive, from Maryland and Connecticut and Boston and just to come down and party with us. And oh my gosh, it was fabulous. It was short. It was short. We wish we had those extra 3 nights. And it only went to Bermuda. That was cute. But I think it was the joys of being on a new ship. The Venezia was refurbished. It was a Costa Cruise Line ship. So that was a really good experience. And then 2.0 was MSC. And then 2.5 was the Virgin Voyages that left from San Juan, Puerto Rico back in February. Now, usually these are family trips. Obviously, everybody had to leave the kids at home, and it was just a lot of first timers to Virgin. That was my second Virgin Voyages cruise, so I knew what to expect. And it was amazing. The DJ, she knew DJ Tosh. She's in the Melanin Sea group. Shout outs to her. She kept the vibes vibing. She's a young lady from Belize. She was great. Our private brown party was great. It was on the aft of the ship, so we had our own outdoor space, and it was just really great. And of course, Virgin has great food. The destinations were Southern Caribbean, so we got beyond the Bahamas, which was awesome for us. And then fast forward, we went from Southern Caribbean to Alaska. So we're talking different wardrobe. Oh my goodness, how are we going to dress? We don't know what to expect. Most people, I would say, we had a woman from the group who actually lived in Alaska. So
Get
she
out.
kind of had an idea. Yes.
Oh,
Yes, she lived in Alaska.
she used to live in Alaska.
No. She currently lives
Oh,
in Alaska.
wow. And
So
she's in
she
the
is
group.
not. Yeah, she's in the group. She is not from Alaska originally. She actually took a teaching job up there maybe a year or two ago. We were talking, and she is in a very remote part of Alaska with mostly indigenous people. And she's a teacher and she really likes it. She's up there without her family. She's originally from Denver, I believe. Shout out to Jamila, who we had good conversations with, and we hope to see her on another group cruise. So she had to fly down to Seattle to then go to Alaska. But then afterwards, she went to go visit family after the cruise. But obviously, Alaska, there's different types of weather in different parts of Alaska because we're talking like, the southern part all the way up to the northern part. And then you have parts that touch Canada, where the weather, it's a total different vibe. When we got to our first stop in was Juneau. No, I'm sorry, it was Ketchikan. Throwing me off. Ketchikan. We all decided to dress alike. We were all wearing our black and white, or I'm sorry, black and red lumberjack outfits. People had on the flannels and the hats and the boots. It was 75 degrees, Paul. So we
Wow.
we were cosplaying lumberjacks, and it was hot outside. The locals had on shorts because 75 in Alaska is like Miami.
Yeah. I remember when I went in May,
Mhm.
and one day, most of the trip it was around 40, but one day, and it was in Ketchikan,
Mhm.
it was like 65.
Right.
And I was on a bus riding it, into town, and there were people on the bus who were in short sleeves. 65. Now,
Yes.
not me,
Right.
not me,
Right.
but there
Right.
were some people. So let me ask you, before you go any further on Alaska, what was the itinerary?
So the itinerary was everybody had to get their booties up to Seattle, Washington. Most people got there 2 days before. We always do a pregame kind of meet and greet beforehand. So it was a good amount of people. Not everybody came. A lot of people flew across the country, from the Northeast and from the Southeast. So there were flight delays, but fortunately, every single person made the cruise. Because they gave themselves lead time. So on the cruise itself, which was the Celebrity Edge, We stopped in Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. And then we have the obligatory, we have to go international to Victoria, British Columbia, which is in Canada.
Now, what percentage? First of all, how many did you have this time?
We had 150 Melanin Sea cruisers. Yeah.
150. So, what percentage of the 150? You probably don't know, but ballpark. What percentage had never been to Alaska?
From the majority of the people I spoke to, I only spoke to two people out of that 150 who had been to Alaska before. Um,
Wow.
yes, yes, there may be more, but I would say no more than a handful. So this was most people's first experience going to Alaska, and most people's first experience going on celebrity cruise lines as
Well,
well.
you anticipated my next question. What are you reading my mind?
Of course, Paul, we are in sync.
I was going to say, what percent had been on the not so much celebrity, but on the edge class, which is, the listeners probably have figured out my favorite cruise
Hmm.
is an edge class ship. It was Celebrity Beyond,
Yes.
which I'm sure Celebrity Edge is very similar to.
Yes, I'm sure they're very identical. I mean, in looks, they look, with the magic carpet, which is the orange thing that protrudes off the side of the ship. No, just beautiful. From the people that I had spoken to, there were a handful of people who had been on Edge class before, so they knew what to expect in terms of it's very classy. They're playing jazz. They play a lot of R&B in the atrium, which was really nice. Was a nice vibe because you could walk through and you're like, oh, that's my jam. So you're just kind of like snapping and popping through. But it is I mean, it is, and I know most of your listeners have probably been on Royal Caribbean before, but it is Royal Caribbean elevated.
Sure, sure. Hmm.
Yeah.
So, just for the listeners who are not familiar with Celebrity Edge class, it started with the Celebrity Edge, and then they added the Apex, the Beyond, which is the one that I love, and I like to point out, I like to brag. When I had the CEO who introduced the Edge class on my show, I asked her what's her favorite ship across all. She at the time she was working for Royal, but prior to that she was the CEO of Celebrity, and she tells me of all the ships she's ever been on, Celebrity Beyond is her favorite ship. So I
Oh,
like to point
nice.
that out that I'm in sync also with the CEO. But
Nice. And I will say the hospitality, and I could see how the hospitality on Celebrity was top notch. And we'll get into how well they treated
yep,
us.
yep.
It was a wonderful experience. And if you get a chance to do a celebrity itinerary, do not hesitate. That Edge class, excellent. Creme de la creme.
And then after Beyond came the newest one in that class, Celebrity Ascent, and I'm going on Ascent in a few
Oh,
months. So I'm going to look to see if Ascent surpasses the other ships in the class. So
I'm excited for you, Paul.
so say something about the food. I'm particularly interested because I used to like to say in various Facebook groups that I stick my nose in that celebrities' food is the best. Now I've been reading some things that suggest it's kind of lagging a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The main dining room for me, I wanted more from them because it is supposed to be a premium cruise line, but we do have to always keep in mind it is owned by Royal Caribbean International. So they are looking for you to do the paid experiences, steakhouse, top notch. And we also did the Le Petit Chef, which was an animated experience. And then after they show you the animation on the plate, they actually serve you the dish that the little characters have made, which was really cute because we did that for my niece Royce. She had turned 7 while we were on the cruise.
Oh,
So
I bet the girls loved it.
they absolutely were wild about it, even though they did not order exactly what was in the animation. Because kids will be kids and they want their mac and cheese and their little chicken fingers and stuff. But she had a great time. We had a little Hello Kitty themed birthday for her. So celebrity brought her out a full size birthday cake that I heard in the morning they gave her a birthday cake in the room. So they were just bringing the little girl out birthday cakes galore that we could barely even eat after eating all the yummy stuff at Le Petit. I mean, we had lobster tail. It was great. It was fabulous. The only thing that really bothered me a little bit, we did have a large party, and I don't mean 150 Melanin C members, but just our family alone was 15 to 17 people like every night trying to go to dinner together. So we had to obviously put in a reservation. Meanwhile, we had anytime dining. So we thought that we could show up maybe around 6:30, 7 o'clock. Different people in the group had different dietary things. They have to eat earlier than others. And they were like, for a party that large, you got to eat after 8:30, and we have little kids with us, and we were just like, oh, okay. And then it wasn't anything too, yeah, and it wasn't anything too spectacular. You get your run-of-the-mill salmon with a salad, or they may have some little braised beef on there. Nothing that really blew my socks off. I didn't feel like the food was particularly seasoned as well, but it didn't lack seasoning. You know how a lot of cruise lines, they'll just overcompensate by just throwing a bunch of salt, not even pepper, but a bunch of salt and stuff, and you notice it because you may be a little swollen in some areas. um,
Hmm.
but no, it was decent enough to be like, okay, this is good, but let me see what's at the buffet. Now the buffet, and I'm not huge on buffets, but the buffet was really, it was one of the best buffets I think I've ever seen on a cruise ship. Uh,
I agree with you, and I am not. Now I used to be a buffet junkie. I mean, that's kind of what drew me to cruising.
mhm.
But after COVID, I will. You have to drag me in a buffet
Right.
into a
Yeah,
buffet.
and it has to be a premium. For me, it can't be like Sizzler. Remember those? It can't be.
So now that was your first time to Alaska, right?
That was my very first time, yes.
And you took your daughter.
That's my girl. That's my travel buddy.
So how did she like it?
So she was really jazzed. She just graduated from 8th grade in June. So we've been planning this for almost a year with her best friend from kindergarten. It's funny because, they're really not that old. They're only 13 and 14. But you realize they've had a very long friendship for their little short lives. And her friend's mom was totally on board with going because she loves Royal Caribbean. She's been on a Celebrity before, but not an edge class ship. So for her, and she had never been to Alaska either. So she was totally down. And, we took our girls as pretty much a 8th grade graduation gift. And, Celebrity isn't traditionally geared towards kids, but there were 200 kids on this sailing, which we were really surprised. Um, and everybody, you barely saw them. They have something for everybody. They had a teen camp that was ages 13 through 17. And initially, my daughter is, she's like, oh, I don't really want to go. The first day, she's like, ah. Second day, she went back. Third day, she was hooked. They were having parties. They were having their own little parties. The teenagers could come and go as they please. It didn't close till midnight. So it gave them a little bit more freedom away from the little kids because, my nieces, Rain and Royce, they're only 7 and 8. So they're with their peers. And then my daughter Autumn is with the older kids where she feel like she need to be. She don't want to deal with elementary. She going to high school. She ain't dealing with elementary kids no more. So she loves it. Was great for her. She
Well,
loved
how
it.
did mom like it? What did you do? What excursions did you do?
Right. So mom and dad came as well. Mom loved You know what? I will say mom loved it, but she's a casino girl. And that's one thing that she didn't appreciate was how the casino closes at 2 a.m. That's when she's getting the party started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we did our own excursions, kind of separate from my parents. In Ketchikan, we did the Dungeness Crab experience. And I would say a good maybe 40 people did that one. So we got on a bus and we went out to the waterfront in Ketchikan, and we sat in this little, it was like a little log cabin house, and we ate Dungeness crabs. It was all you can eat experience. And let me tell you, it was so filling. The only negative I would say was that we had a 9:30 bus pickup. So that meant we were eating crabs at like 10 a.m. And honestly, that was the best breakfast I think I ever had.
That sounds great. I don't remember that excursion being offered.
Well, you know what? It wasn't offered on the
Oh,
ship.
okay.
Richard and Jasmine
Did some
did their own
research.
thing, but they did, right. They did their own thing. And also the company that they dealt with, they said that they had a track record of getting people back to the ship before it ended. I will have to get you guys the name of who they booked through, but it was fantastic. It was beautiful pictures, wonderful views from that little log cabin house. We even had a contest at each table of after we put the shells on a plate, how we could build up the shells and how many inches, could each table build up to. And I think a foot high was the was the highest table.
Wow.
So they won like 20% off at the gift shop, which was pretty fun for them. They gave us dessert. I mean, we were full, but before noon. So, one interesting thing that happened, our bus driver, he was phenomenal. He was a young college kid, probably in his early 20s. And the ladies were swooning over him because he looked like a little celebrity. I mean, he was a good-looking
You, you
kid.
know,
And the first
I wonder. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I
Mhm.
wonder if that's the same guy we had for an excursion. He was a college kid. He was
Did he play guitar?
no.
Okay, because he brought out the stops for us. He brought out the
Okay.
guitar. The ladies on the bus, they were just asking him all kinds of questions. He has a girlfriend, but we still had a good time with him. And I will tell you, Nathan, shout out to you, Nathan. um, but I will tell you what happened. Poor Nathan. The bus broke down on the way back. Thankfully, we had more than enough time to get back to port because we had another excursion booked, which was the lumberjack show, which is usually the big to do, either through the ship or if you book privately. But we got stuck on a little bridge, and what happened was he was showing us all the wildlife off in the rivers and stuff like that. So he slowed down, and the next thing you know, the bus just stopped moving. And we thought he was joking because he was joking around with us a bunch, and he was like, "No, the bus is stuck." And so he said, "You know what? I'm gonna call my management and have them try to send us another bus so we can get you guys out to where you need to be." So everybody was cool about it. So he let us get off the bus onto the bridge. We were able to take pictures. When I tell you, we saw bald eagles off that bridge. Bears were coming out, and he told us bears don't come out that time of the day. A bear came out and caught a salmon, ripped the salmon's head off, and ate it, and we got it on video. Like it was an excursion in itself.
Wow. You
Yeah, just to get video of
you
that.
know,
It was
just
beautiful.
an aside, but I always
Mhm.
advise newer cruisers to try to stick to the excursions offered by the cruise line because
Absolutely.
they will never ever leave you. And so now,
Right.
but I have to update that because there's a
Yes,
family.
I was gonna say, unless you were on
Yeah,
Norwegian, which
was that the
was
one with the family
apparently,
in Alaska?
yes, the family, and yes, they were there, I believe, the week before us.
Yeah.
It was a family of 9, and Norwegian left
Yeah,
them.
Norwegian left
And
them, and so I have
mhm.
tried. It's a true story. I have tried to reach out to that family
Oh,
to
wow.
invite them on the podcast.
Mhm.
No luck yet. But let me say this to
Okay.
the listeners: if anyone who's listening knows that family, tell them that I want them to tell their story to the world. Not so much to hit on the cruise line, but it just sounds like an interesting story. I want to find out, what did they do in
Yeah, because
Alaska and so on and so forth.
yeah, 99.9% of the time, and Paul is absolutely right. We typically do excursions, but because this one was so early and we had another one that was within walking distance of the cruise port, you know, as experienced cruisers, you know that it's, if you have another 6 hours left, it's almost impossible to miss the ship. But as a new cruiser, I don't even tell people as a new cruiser to do 7 days. Do 4 to 5 to get your feet wet, because you don't know if you're gonna, get seasick. You don't know if you're even gonna like it. My very first cruise, I mean, I was 17 years old, was a 4 day to the Bahamas, Nassau and Freeport. And, it was a good time. But if you would offer me that same itinerary now, I'd be like, oh, never. No. Horrible. Nassau and Freeport, Freeport. What is that to do with
Yeah.
Freeport? Um, but once you're more seasoned, you get to know the landscape. I mean, Alaska, some people, it was their very first cruise,
Oh
which
wow!
I was
I forgot about that. I asked about how many it was their first time to Alaska, but for Alaska to be your
right.
very first cruise, wow.
Your very first cruise, and you sound just like me when people said that. And I said, wait, so you took a chance not just on Alaska, but also with a group of 150 people from Facebook? You guys are risk takers, but everybody said they had a great time. A lot of people were saying how much they missed being on the ship, how they can't wait until the next one, which is yet to be announced for 2025, but the next one will be in 2025. So we don't have anything lined up for 2024. Um, but yeah, no, let's see. So backtracking to Ketchikan, after we went through the experience of getting stuck, um, we moved into the lumberjack show, and that's why we were, in our lumberjack gear, and we were dressed to the nines. And the lumberjack show, they were very nice. They accommodated us with our own section. So you may see in vlogs that are popping up, Melanin at Sea had their own section in the lumberjack show. And of course, it's a very novel thing. It's kind of like going to a luau in Hawaii, where it's very cheeky. It's a competition, and you have these lumberjacks, and they're knocking on the logs and making shapes out of things. And someone from our group, their son won a log bench, which I don't even know how he got it home. But no, it was a really cute experience, especially being that a few of us had families with us. I think we only had like 10 to 12 kids in our group. But the adults enjoyed it as well, because it was a very inexpensive experience. We didn't have to be bused there. Like I said, it was within walking distance of the cruise port. And it seems like a fairly huge attraction, because they do shows like once an hour, something like that, once every 90 minutes.
But talk about I saw on somewhere, IG or somewhere, I saw where the captain joined you all. Tell us about that.
So that was during so Melanin at Sea, and Rich and Jazzy, they love matching. They come up with these themes. They've been like this for years, well before Melanin at Sea, where they all dress alike. So they came up with this concept, even on the very first group cruise, to have a private party. Once you have a big group, the ship usually offers that as an incentive to have a private party for about an hour or two. I believe it's 2 hours, for your group to have a party. So Jasmine and Richard said, we're going to do the next level. We'll do a party where we dress in our finest melanin wares, and we'll have a cocktail party. And at the cocktail party, we'll crown a king and queen of Melanin at Sea. So, obviously there's been 4 sets before these folks of Melanists. Whether it's, and they intertwine the children in it as well in the experience. They're like, we're going to do an old school Apollo way. We're not separating the kids from the adults. The people here, and they dress in their best. So what they do is, um, the first formal night, they take pictures of everyone. We usually bring along our own photographer. Shout out to Sharik. He takes a picture of everyone and then who wants to participate in the contest and then posts them on our Facebook group for the 105,000 members to vote on. So even if you're at home, you're a part of the experience because you get to see everybody in their nice formal wear. And then at the party, which is usually about 2 days later, generally about a day or two after the voting starts, we announce who won the contest. So this year's winners were both kids. This is the first time. Um, yeah, they were both toddlers. One was 3 and one was 5.
Wow.
And I mean, they were dressed. They came and they brought it and their pictures as if they were kid models, which was great. And I mean, the members, they vote for everyone. So don't get me wrong, there were some adults that came dressed to the nines, but the kids, they really brought it. So shout out to them. Chloe and PJ for winning. Mr. and Ms. Melanin at Sea 3.0.
So was that the cocktail party the captain came?
Yes. So that's the cocktail party. So the captain and a few of the heads of the departments on the ship. So we met the head of like culinary and hospitality, the cleaning service. We were like, wow, this is the first time on any Melanin at Sea group cruise that staff has acknowledged us and spoke on the mic. The captain spoke, he thanked us. Even before the party, they sent each Melanin at Sea cruiser private letters with the Melanin at Sea logo in the
Oh,
letterhead,
wow.
notifying us of the party. We just thought that was a very fine touch and very fine attention to detail on behalf of celebrity. And I mean, we would definitely consider another Edge class ship as a future cruise because the hospitality was just amazing. And I mean, this was probably, I would say, of all the Melanin at Sea group cruises. And it's funny because I was telling somebody else this, and because, a lot of people of color really lean towards Carnival and some of the other cruise lines, on a normal basis, we would not have thought that celebrity would have had such a higher standard and appreciation for us being there. There were even guests that said to us, "You enhanced our experience because your group was so fun."
Wow.
We were literally just thinking, we were going to be a little bored. It's going to Alaska. We were partying on the Lido deck on the days that we could when it was still sunny outside. We were partying at the silent parties. We were partying at the club. So the captain was really excited that we were there and we felt the love.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about Melanin at Sea's future and your future. So I was going to ask, because I know many listeners are like, you've got a lot of listeners in suspense now because you kind of alluded to the next group cruise. You got me in suspense because I'm wondering if it's something that I can fit in my we're on this journey to check some things off our bucket list, and it's
Right.
all the way. It's been all the way through 24 and all the way through 25. So I kind of am booked up for 25, but with the right timing and the right conversation with my better half, I
Hmm.
might be able to squeeze one in. So I can't wait. I can't wait to hear about that. So I'm not going to pester you. I'd like to get that
Paul is ready.
information, but I'm sure Rich and
Paul is ready
Jazzy
to
is ready.
mortgage the house and sell the
Yep, yep,
cars
yep.
and send his wife to work. More OT.
So I won't ask what the next group cruise is. You already said there is another group cruise in the works.
So you know what I can say is that Rich and Jazzy, I guess by the time this episode airs, will soon the announcements are coming soon, but they have 3 in the pipeline.
Okay.
And on their last Friday night YouTube live, they announced 4.5. I don't know if you had a
No, I didn't
chance
see that.
to see it or see the replay, Paul. But for the listeners, there is an announcement for April of 2026. It will be on Disney.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, I
Yes. So if you are a Disney adult or you have kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews, this one is a shorter one. It is a 4 day, but before we embark on the cruise, we're going to do Disney World for the day
oh
before.
wow, that's
So it
nice.
should be a nice, yeah, it should be a really nice time. Usually rich and jazzy, they plan these things. The Life of R&R, which are my nieces, they are working with their parents to set up this cruise as well. So this is their first foray into hosting a cruise. So they're going to have some kid activities and things like that on the ship. So it should be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been on Disney Cruise Line, so I'm excited.
Let me jump in for the listeners. So R&R are Royce
Hmm.
and Rain, and
Rain and Royce,
Rain and
yes.
Royce, and they are the two
Hmm.
adorable daughters of Rich and Jazzy, and Venus's nieces, obviously.
Yes.
And that's so apropos that they are kind of leading the Disney cruise. I know I can't make that one because March of 26 is when I'm booked on Brilliant.
And look at you already booked for 26.
Yep, yep. But I can't wait to hear. So let's see. This was 3.0, and you just mentioned 4.5. So there's probably two in between there.
Hmm.
Brilliant
Stay
Lady
tuned.
is my only booking for 26. So I'm hoping one of those two is 26, but I know one's going to be in 25.
They will both be in 25.
Okay, okay. Well, we'll
Yes.
see.
They try to make it a point. They try to make it a point to do two a
Okay,
year.
okay.
So I will give you that. They will both be in 25. But I will, I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder. And plus, they have to finalize the plan. So I really can't make any announcements. I'm not sure because I'm not booked on any of them
Right.
yet. But I like to keep myself open. What we like to tell all of the members is every July, look forward to there being a group cruise. If there's anything, try to leave that open if you can. But then, of course, there's people who have things in June and there's people who have things in
Yeah, yeah.
August. So it's a little, everybody is not flexible to sail every single month, or, it may not be in the budget for everybody to do. I know for myself, I have a full-time, hybrid schedule at work. The people at my job, they're starting to call me the cruise queen. And I'm like, I only take 3 to 4 a year. I know people that take one a
Yep,
month
yep.
or two
Yeah,
a
I
month.
just had someone on the show, Gary Rembrich, who takes one a month, and he takes,
Right.
he goes on Regent and Silver
Right.
Seas and Crystal and all of that. So
These are the full-time
yeah, yeah.
cruisers.
So what about you? Do you have anything other than the pending Melanin at Sea cruises? Do you have anything booked yet for the
You
future?
know what, Paul? After, and we didn't really touch on this, after Australia and after Alaska, and even before Alaska, I went to Greece. I went to Greece on Virgin Voyages with some cousins and some friends. There were 8 of us in
Oh,
total.
that was the Greek
So
Island Glow
Greek
itinerary.
Greek Island
Uh-huh.
Glow. If that is on your bucket list, add it, book it, go. It is an amazing experience. It's just great. It's great. So I've done 3 bucket list cruises essentially in this year, in addition to the 2.5, which was the Puerto Rico Virgin Voyages cruise. So I have accomplished a bunch of things, so much so that just got caught up in what I had. I haven't booked anything else, Paul. I don't even have a weekend trip to Atlantic City.
Well, you're going to have three good cruises to choose from coming up. Just those
Absolutely.
are Melanin Sea group cruises.
Right.
Um, so tell the listeners how can listeners join Melanin at Sea?
So you can find us on Facebook at Melanin at Sea. And your request will be pending. We'll let you in the group. It doesn't cost anything. It's a free Facebook group. We are also on Instagram at Melanin at Sea. Also follow a Rich and Jazzy Life because they give you updates that, and obviously they are the founders of Melanin at Sea, and they're adjacent to all activities Melanin at Sea. And my nieces, Life of R&R, they're on YouTube and Instagram as
And
well.
listeners, you probably heard it in my voice before. Follow the girls. They're, you know, I think I
They are absolutely
I think it's
adorable.
partially because, I have two daughters and, they're grown,
Hmm.
obviously. I'm a little older than Rich and Jazzy and you. Not a lot. But
Like, Paul, what are you
there
talking
you
about?
go.
You
There you go.
35. What are you talking about? I wasn't going to say 20.
Yep,
I was say 25.
yep,
35
yep,
is
yep.
a sweet
But
age. I'm not even 35, Paul, but you know.
but they bring me back, to a wonderful time in my life. When my daughters were that age, and
Right.
so I yeah,
Oh, 7 and 8
I'm just
is
so
such a good
attached to them
age.
because I kind of relive my young parent life
Mhm.
vicariously through them. So
Right. The rich and jazz don't know how good they got it, Paul. 7 and 8 is really a good time, and they are experienced cruisers. They have been on each of them more than 2 dozen cruises
mhm.
themselves. It's only
Wow.
7 and 8, and I
More
mean
tmore than probably most of my
more
listeners,
and
not
more than
all.
me.
Yep, yep.
We went to Canada, and I think they said it was country number 18. And I looked at my little bin app and I said, "Oh, I've been to 17 countries. Y'all doing it
Yep, yep.
up."
Venus, this has been a lot of fun. But before we let you go, I have to ask my fun or light getting to know you questions. Of course, they're different from for repeat guests, so I'm not going to ask
Right.
you what I asked before. So I'm going to ask you questions that will enable your friends. There's at least 105,000 of them, but I know you have all kind of friends in New York. So let your friends get to know you better. I've previously asked about your favorite cruise drinks and food. Did you try anything new in Alaska to eat other than the Dungeness crabs? But you eat those anyway.
Oh,
Anything that you never heard of
was there anything
in
I
Alaska?
no, a lot of it is very seafood. I'm a big seafood person. Um, so there wasn't anything I had never heard of, but it was just so good to have fresh Alaskan salmon. Oh, it's yeah, because over here we get the
Right,
farm
right, right.
raised, and it looks different. It tastes different. The halibut was different. Oh, something different that I picked up at one of the gift shops was salmon jerky. So, for those
Okay,
of you
okay.
who had watched this last week's Friday Night Live, myself and my daughter Autumn, we were guests to discuss the cruise itself. And Autumn, she's not a big jerky person, so I don't even know why she picked this up. It was a salmon teriyaki flavor, and she said it it reminded her of a dog treat. And it wasn't that great. The aftertaste wasn't that great. It was probably about $5 for 2 sticks of salmon jerky. Leave it there if you go to Alaska.
Try. You're not there anymore, but next time you go, try Alaskan fry bread.
Yes, we had the fry bread,
Okay,
and this is why I said it wasn't new to us because it was literally a Zeppeli.
okay.
It was just something different. I forgot we did stop at a place in Skagway, and we had that. That's actually where we purchased the salmon
hmm
jerky.
Now, when you were in, I think it's Juneau. Did you go? Did anybody go to? I'm sure someone went to Tracy's.
We went to Tracy's. So me, mom, dad, and Autumn, we did not go to the one right off the ship. We were daring and it was raining. And shout out to Rich and Jazzy for the ponchos. There are now Melanin to See ponchos in the merch. Uh, it should be on the website soon. But those came in hand that day because it was torrential downpour in Juneau. And we did the 15-minute walk to Tracy's number two, and there was nobody in there. And we had a combo special, and we had the Alaskan king crab leg, crab cakes, and a oh, no, I'm sorry, crab bisque. The crab bisque was amazing. The king crab legs, as you know, were fresh, sweet, hot, heavy. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot. You go there and you're like, "Ooh, this is expensive, $85." Me and Autumn split it, and we were full off of just splitting a $85 combo meal, which was amazing. Crab cakes, they needed more love. You know, if you're from the East Coast, you could go to Maryland and get a real. Just don't eat crab cakes outside of Maryland. It's not worth it.
There you go. As someone who lived most of my adult life in Delaware, I can
Yeah.
second that. So you just taught me something, and hopefully some of the listeners. I know many listeners have been to Alaska, but I did not know there was a Tracy's number two.
Mom found Tracy's number two by watching a bunch of YouTube videos before we went.
There you go.
So Tracy's number one is literally right at the port. You could walk there
Right,
probably less than 2 minutes.
right.
Um, and there's usually a very long line. Even in the rain, there was a long line. And we didn't want to wait in the line. And we said by the time we walked down to Tracy's two, we could probably have a seat. And sure enough, there were only maybe three other families that were dining at that point. And they had a lot of space. It's like more of an outdoor kind of big tent experience at that one, but they have the same exact menu.
So back to the question. So Melanin at Sea is huge, and I know many are joining us today. So I can introduce you further, or give the members of Melanin at Sea a deeper knowledge of what Venus is about. So, what's playing these days in your Bluetooth speaker, headphones, or however you consume music, or podcasts, or audiobooks?
Oh, Paul, I am old school. I am still listening to 80s, 90s, and early 2000s R&B.
No, nothing wrong with that.
um, but I don't think we really talk about what I do for a living. I'm in the TV and film space here in New York City. So I'm always invested in episodic TV shows. And the House of the Dragon really has my heart right now. That is a prequel to Game of Thrones, which Sunday nights I'm locked in. So
Okay.
yeah. So if there's any recommendations on any good episodic Netflix, even network TV shows you guys have, I'm always open to watching.
What's the last live concert you attended?
Ooh, that's a good one. It might have been Beyonce because I have a concert coming up. Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes, and Ciara. I've been waiting many a day for Missy Elliott to do a tour because she's never really done one before, and she's one of my favorite rappers. So I have that coming up next week. But Beyonce Renaissance was probably the last. I actually went with Jazzy in Atlanta, and I had seen it in New Jersey as well. So yeah, Beyonce is always a favorite. I've paid so many times to see her. I probably put her kids through college.
Well, I saw of the ones that you just mentioned. I was at Essence, was it 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and it was great. And that was I was the first time that I saw Busta Rhymes.
Hmm.
So that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Okay, who's your favorite music artist of all time?
Oh, you know, Michael Jackson is is always the holy grail. But I will say one person who I feel is heavily slept on is Luther Vandross. And I had the pleasure of seeing his documentary, which is premiering in 2025 at the Tribeca Film Festival, maybe 2 months ago. Yes. And it is one to see. And it was really nice because a lot of his high school friends were featured in the documentary, and they were also in the audience with us watching, because he's from Harlem, in the Bronx. He's from the Bronx. So there is a lot of history in it, and just knowing how much, how many songs he wrote and how many songs he actually, as the kids would say, how many he stole from people and he made them better.
Yeah, yeah.
He did a lot of remakes,
Including
but these songs,
to me, his best of all time. House is not a home. He didn't do that
exactly.
first. So,
Yes, yes. So, very interesting hour and 45 minutes. CNN produced the documentary. I'm not sure where it will be premiering. As you know, next year is the 20th anniversary of his passing. So it'll probably premiere around
well, we
then.
have something else in common because that's
Mhm.
my favorite of all time.
Look at us, Paul, still on
Yep,
the same wavelength.
yep, yep.
Ain't nobody doing it, but ain't nobody out doing loofah. We won't even listen. Anita Baker used to really be high on my
I,
list.
I, I, act-
That's a whole other.
I
That's
actually
a whole other
saw
podcast, Paul.
a concert where she opened up for Lou, and I did not know. Oh yeah, I
So
did
did
not know
did you
at the
know they
time
had
that we
beef?
saw them. I didn't know about the drama, so I
hmm
now know it was a lot of drama.
Paul, I didn't know she had beef with Luther until this last year. I went to an Anita Baker concert. It was at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Um, and Babyface was on the tour. This was the very first show that she told Babyface he could not perform. And this particular incident made it all the way to TMZ. And I'm sitting at the concert while this is all blowing up all over the internet. And then people started mentioning the Luther and Anita Baker beef. And the sound was horrible. And I mean, that's no fault of her own because there were a lot of technical issues, but she pretty much gave up on
Wow,
stage. And that made me give
wow.
up on her. And that was,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
bad.
A whole nother side of her is kind of coming out lately, which I loved her back in the day. Okay, who
Yeah.
is your favorite? And you pick uh, actor, actress, athlete, or just leader in the field you're interested in.
Consummate professional, Denzel Washington. He can do it all.
There you
He
go.
can do no
There you go.
wrong. I mean, he's a New York guy, but um back in my early days of working in production, I worked on the Taking of Pelham 123 remake. And I was just a production assistant, so not a big role. And he took the time out to greet us, to wave to us. And that's really said a lot about him. And just in movies and film, he's just very real. In interviews, he's very
You
authentic.
had a behind the scenes role, or you actually showed up on camera.
Yeah, no, no, I was behind the
Oh,
scenes. I work behind the
okay,
scenes.
okay.
So
Because if you
yeah,
said you
just
showed up on camera, I was about to say
oh
I know what I'm doing
no.
tonight. I've seen that. I've
I'm a
seen that
behind the
movie, but I was getting ready to rewatch
no, I'm a behind the scenes girly. We don't do in front of the
it.
camera, Paul. That honestly, it's funny because my sister she's always been the face and I've always
Uh-huh.
been behind the
Well,
scenes, which is ironic.
last question, and it's kind of related to what we've been talking about. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Somebody asked me that recently, and I don't have one. I just enjoy variety of genre. I feel like each movie, because I've worked in movies. Um, there's just certain cinematic touches that films have. I mean, you can go back to The Wizard of Oz versus The Wiz. They each have their own special place in iconic history. Obviously some films are flawed in terms of casting and characters. So for me, I look at films and TV probably a lot differently from the average person, having worked in that space. Because you could watch a 2-minute scene and as a film professional that it probably took 2 days to make that one scene.
Wow.
Don't let me see a table scene, a scene where characters are sitting around the table. That's probably a 20-hour day shot in maybe 4 minutes of
Now you've
footage.
been on Icon, right?
I have not been on
Oh, okay,
Icon.
okay. Because I have heard, in fact, I think when I had last time I had Rich and Jazzy on the show, that their version of The Wizard of Oz is the best show. And I heard this from other people as well. So I've heard it more than once, but that their
Really?
version of The Wizard of
hmm
Oz was the best show at sea.
Wow. I got to get on the icon. My daughter said, "Mommy, we have to go on the icon." And I said, "Going on the icon is the difference between you going to a 4 year and community college." That man, that budget. And for me,
Yeah.
this year I feel like my focus was to get out of just going to the Caribbean. No shade to the Caribbean. We love the Caribbean. Shout out to the Jamaicans. Half my family is Jamaican, but it's also, you want to experience different things that you haven't seen before. Because for us, especially as East Coasters, the Caribbean is very accessible, whether it's by sea or by plane, or you may know somebody from one of the islands and you could just fly there and do local things. But I feel like it's something to be said to go to Greece or go to Alaska or go to Australia or even go to, South Africa, as some families are starting to cruise out of there as well. Um, it's really something to be said to do. I know all cruises are pretty much international, but to go overseas and start at an overseas port to do international, I think that's really special. So, Icon, if you could fit, if you could do a transatlantic, I will be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, Venus's friends, I hope you feel like you know Venus just a little bit more than you did before you tuned into this podcast. And Venus, thank you so much for coming back on the Joy of Cruising podcast. With so much happening at Melanin at Sea, or perhaps you checking something off your bucket list in the future, like Icon. I have a feeling we'll see you again. I'll come up with some excuse to have you back on because you're a lot of fun. Uh,
Thank you, Paul.
all the best to you and to Melanin at Sea. And as I like to say, we'll see you on the ocean.
We'll see you there. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, listeners.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, for $18.99, can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.